and believing in yourself, for fighting all of the self-doubt, for fighting through the challenges, for really wanting to do this. All right. So welcome to another session of Unlock Academy Dev202. This is lesson 5, and we're going to continue learning the foundation of JavaScript. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And the first thing you're going to see is YouTube. Okay, so this is YouTube right here. And the reason why I'm showing you guys YouTube is I want you to pay attention to just this layout, right? Let's look in the middle of the page. Let's just look at how these videos, these preview videos are all lined up, right? Now, YouTube did not code, right? They did not manually code, not manually code. They did not manually statically code these links, these images, this text right here, right? Because like I talked about a little bit before, every single person who goes to YouTube is probably going to see something a little bit different, and sometimes widely different, right? Depending on what you watch or whatever else somebody else logs into your account and watches, right? So I'm going to see stuff here that I watch, or my kids may watch, or my queen may listen to and watch. So you're going to see a little variety. So YouTube dynamically creates this page for every single user. So what we need to ask ourselves is, how are they doing it? How are they dynamically creating this? So for one, they're keeping track of our personal interests. So that's one thing. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about how they keep track of what we like. I'm more so talking about how are they displaying this information onto this page dynamically. So they're not just going through and saying, okay, I want an image right here. I want another image here. And to the right of that, I want another image and another right, you know, all these little thumbnails. And then I want to type mix Shalimar, A Night to Remember 1982, right? Nobody typed that into an HTML document. Instead, what they did was they used JavaScript to dynamically pull information from the database and show it on the page. Now, when it comes to showing that information on the page, you need to use something strategic, and there's something that's built into JavaScript called a loop. And a loop, what it does is it allows you to iterate or just like go over a certain block of code more than once. So let's say I want to show an image on a page, a heading, and then like this little YouTube, pretty much like little logo or this like name right here saying like YouTube represents it. Or down here, I want to show a thumbnail, the title of the video, the person who posted it, the author who posted the video, and then the number of views and how long it's been on YouTube. Okay, so every single video has that same format as you look at it. All of these have the same format, right? And what they did was there's one bit of code that says put the title on the page, put the author on the page, put the number of views, and put how long it's been on YouTube. And I want you to do this over and over again for every single piece of data, for every single video I'm about to pass. So pretty much it's like it's passing a video and all of the attributes a part of that video, which we can call the title, the author, and the date, whatever, right? Each one of that is being passed to this function. And every time it gets passed to this function displays it on the screen, displays the next one on the screen, displays the next one on the screen. So in order to do that, because programmers are like kind of lazy in a sense of you don't want to code this whole page for every single user. That gets crazy, it gets long. So instead, what they did was they created this ability for us to create loops. And what loops do is that it allows us to iterate over one piece of code as many times as we want, as many times as we tell it to. Okay. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to code a web page that shows you how we can iterate and pretty much over one block of code and see what happens. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. Let me share my entire screen so you can see my text editor, and I'm over here in Visual Studio Code. Okay. Cool. So here we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just excuse me. I created a project called while loop. All right, while loop, because there's multiple different type of loops. And before I do that, let me just so you believe me, just in case you don't. Did I do it again? Oh no, I didn't. Cool. There's different type of loops. We got over here. If you go to W3 Schools, we got a for loop, we got a while loop, we got something called a do while loop, and we're going to talk about all of these different loops. Okay, this is right here is the basic syntax of a loop. You use this keyword called while. You put a condition, kind of like our if else condition, where you say if X is less than Y, or if A is equal to B, or if C is less than 10, right? That's what a condition is, where you test something to be true or false. Okay, so you say while the condition is true, right? While this is true, whatever it may be, you do some kind of code in here. You put some code in here. Then everything inside of this block, everything inside of these quote, these curly braces will continue to happen until this statement is no longer true. Okay, so we're going to take our time with this. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the while loop. We're going to talk about conditions. We're going to learn about incrementing, and I'll tell you exactly what that means. And then I'm also going to focus on the console as well, the developer's console, where we can see the code inside of our browser. Okay, so let's just start from scratch, start from the basics, keep it really simple. So what I'm going to start with first is go over here to my text editor. I'm just going to create our basic outline, right? Doc type HTML. And I'm just going to save this so that way we can just have something going. I'm going to call this index.html. Okay, and now we got something started. So next, we got our head. Cool. Got our body. Cool. Okay. Then, of course, next we have our inside of our body. I'm going to just put our script, because we're going to do some JavaScript as well. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I'm just do a quick little heading and say, this is an example of a while loop. And I'm going to do while as bold. Matter of fact, I'm going to just underline it, because we have different type of loops. So I want to make sure we stick on point and we know exactly what kind of loop this is. So then I'm going to go and say open in default browser. And here we go. So this is an example of a while loop. All right, just a very basic page. So now the rest of the page is going to be created dynamically. Everything else you see, I'm not going to put any other HTML up here. It's going to be strictly JavaScript. Okay, so back to the syntax of a while loop. The while loop looks like this. You do the keyword while, you put something inside of here, what's true and what's false. So while true, but we're not going to just keep true there, but it's just saying this is an example. So while something is true, we do whatever is in here. Execute some code. Okay, so I'm going to do a really basic example, and then we could do something more realistic, but I just want you to get used to the syntax first. Okay, so we're going to do something just super elementary. So what we want to do with this is we need to say, while something is true, execute this code. So let's say I wanted to print onto the screen my name 10 times, right? So what I can do is first of all, what you need is you need a counter, because you need to say how many times you want to do something. If you don't say how many times you want to do something in a loop, the loop will run forever, right? And that's not what we want, because what you'll do is you'll crash your browser. And believe me, every programmer has done it. It sucks, because you have to close your browser down really quick before it starts eating up a bunch of processing power. And you don't want that to crash your whole computer. So you have to be very careful. And I'm going to show you how to make sure you never do it's called an infinite loop. An infinite loop means you write this code and it's always true. So it's always just doing your code. Next thing you know, instead of doing 10 times, it does it infinity times. It's just going. And next thing you know, the browser runs out of processing power, and it just like gets weird. It freezes up, locks up your whole browser, and hopefully it doesn't lock up your whole computer. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to create a variable called counter, right? And counter is equal to 1, because we want to do it at least 10 times. We're going to start at 1. So we're going to write it once, and then twice, and then 3, and then 4, and 5 times. Okay, bear with me. It's all going to make sense. So what we want to do, our condition is we want to say while, so as long as this is true, while counter is less than 11, right? Because we want to do it 10 times. So we're going to do it as long as it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. As long as it's less than 11, we want to execute some code. So what do we want to do? We want to simply just do document.write, and I want to just write my name to the screen. Okay. So this right here just is going to just write this text to the screen. But what we need to be very, very careful of, like I said, is we need to make sure we like, how do we know that we're done? How do we know how do we keep on going? How do we make the counter increment? How do we make the counter go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10? There's a couple different ways to do it, right? And I'm going to show you both ways. So pretty much this variable counter needs to increase in value. Right now it's 1. When it starts off, it's going to be 1 because we initialize it to 1. This right here is one way to do it. What you do is you say counter plus plus. Counter plus plus. So if you ever heard of the language C++, this is kind of where it came from. Plus plus just means increment by 1. Okay. Plus plus equals increment by 1. So if your variable was 1, when it comes here, it's now going to be 2. It's going to loop over. The next time it comes, it's going to increment again, and now it's going to be equal to 2. It's going to increment again, and now it's going to be equal to 3. Then it's going to, every single time, it's just going to add 1 to it. That's what it does. Okay. Another way to write this is counter equals counter plus 1, right? Counter equals counter plus 1. So we're going to go over both of these, but first let's just yeah, I just want to make sure you guys get this. So what this is saying is counter, we're going to overwrite this counter variable. Before we already said it was equal to 1, but what it's going to do is it's going to come down here, see what the value is, which in the first time it goes around, it's going to be 1. It's going to add 1 to it. Now it's going to be 1 plus 1 equals 2. So 2 is going to get stored here. It's going to start over at the top of the loop, come down, write Antoine.Digital again, and then it's going to increment again. This time it's going to say counter equals counter, which is now 2 plus 1, which is 3. So it's going to say 2 plus 1. Now it's going to store 3 in this variable. Then it's going to start over again at the top. So let's go through it. First, let's do it with that way. I'm going to comment this line of code out, and we're going to just do this way first so you can see that. So I'm going to go back over here. And what another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add something called a debugger statement. Debugger statement. What this is, this will pause the execution so we can step through the code. Okay. This will pause the execution so we can step through the code. But this will only work. This is a keyword called debugger. This will only work if you have the inspector tools open, if you have the console open. So I go down here to inspect. Okay. Let me see if it looks better if I go over here. Okay. So as long as I have this open, it's going to work. All right. As long as I have this console open, that debugger will work. So let me make sure it's saved. It's saved. And we're just going to, the debugger is cool because what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to step through the code one line at a time. So that's really what I want to show you guys as well, is like how to use this debugger. Because when you're having bugs in your code and you're trying to figure out what's going wrong, it's really important to know how to debug your own code. I get a lot of questions from people, and which is fine. I love your questions. It's just that I know how to instantly go into your code and debug it. It's not that I can just I'm better than you in the sense of like I can just see like, oh, that's a stupid error. It's I know how to go through your code and look and see where you may be messing up at. So I want to teach you guys that same skill set. All right. More so it's about how to use these tools that that Chrome provides to us or Firefox provides to us. So I'm going to refresh my page, and when I refresh the page, you're going to see it stop because it's going to stop right here. So it's going to show the code over here. So refresh. Up here in the middle, you see it says paused in debugger. So we're over here in the debugger. And what it does is it takes you over here to this tab called sources. Okay, hope you guys are taking notes. If I need to slow down, let me know. So it's paused. We're in the sources tab. Sources is like, what it does is it just means your source code. Like source code means like your actual code. That's just another word for it. So it takes us over here to our source code. And as you see, this is the code that I typed over here in my editor. Okay. Let me see if it looks better at the bottom as well, just because it may show more. Let me see. Yeah, I like this way better. Okay, so this is the code that we typed. So literally it's paused at our code. It paused first at that line debugger because we can tell the debugger to stop wherever you want in your JavaScript. You can't put debugger in your HTML or in your CSS. You have to put that keyword in the JavaScript, somewhere in between these script tags. Okay, so we pause right here. Once you're paused, I'm going to open this up a little bit more so you can see something, because over here are some very useful commands. Okay, these are some very useful commands. Okay, so we're going to go over each one. This first one is resume. It's like a play button. Think of it as a play button. This button says continue going. Like, I know I said stop, but I don't want you to stop anymore. I want you to just run through the code. That's not what we want to do right now. When you're debugging, you want to step through one line at a time. Okay, so that means we use what's called the step over function. Okay, the step over, this button goes to the next line. That's what it does. It just goes to the very, very next line. Okay, the next one is called the step into. So this is step over, this is step into. Step into is very useful when you have a function where you want to go into that function. So for example, look down here at document.write. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use step into, so where we can step into that function called write. Write is a function that was created by JavaScript developers. But if we wanted to, we can step into their code and see what write function actually does. We can see line by line what it does. So that's what the step into does. It takes a deeper look into some function. Okay. Right now, what we're going to be focusing on is just step over. Right. For the most part, that's usually not, I'm not going to say that. It depends, because sometimes you want to step into your functions too. You want to step into your functions. But for today, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be stepping over. And then there's also a step out. Step out is if you step into a function, like you go deep into their write function and you see all their code and you're like, I don't want to keep on going down. Instead, take me back to where I started from and let's continue stepping over there. So just play around with these. That's all I want you to do is just play around with them. Just get used to just run your code, put a debugger in there, and just see what happens when you click step over. See what happens when you click step into. See what happens when you click step out. Okay. And that's how you'll get used to it. When I'm talking about it, it may click a little bit, but for the most part, it's about repetition. Okay. So, but they're really simple. So for now, you want to use step over, because step over just goes to the next line. Okay. So step over this line, go to the next line. So let's use step over first. Oh, one more thing before we do that. Also over here in this little panel, they have something called watch. A watch is if you want to watch a certain variable. Let's say we want to a block script. It's going to keep track of scope too as well. It keeps track of certain variables that you have in your code. Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah, just keep track of certain variables. So we're going to get to it in a second. So for now, let's just go step over. Boom. So now it just went to the very, very next line. If you look at counter is still undefined. Okay. It's undefined because this line has not executed yet. So counter is not even equal to 1 yet. Okay. If you go down here, counter is not even equal to anything. It's still undefined. So you can put the mouse over any one of these variables and it gives information. It breaks down document. These are all of the attributes that are part of document, right? We talked about the document object. So this is everything that you can do with document. All of the functions. It's really cool. It gives you a breakdown of everything. And what we used was the document.write. Okay. So it's really cool. Everything is inside of here. That's not what we need to be focused on right now. Okay. So this is a while loop. Cool. So I'm gonna do step over again, and now you're gonna see counter has a value. Counter is now equal to 1. Okay, you see that? Pretty cool. So now we know counter is equal to 1 because it executed that line. This initialization, it happened. Oops, this is crazy. Cool, 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 cool. I'm just looking at some of this other stuff. Um, these are global stuff. This is global things that you can access, like things that are part of the window object, like window.alert or window.blur, stuff like that. We're not worried about that right now. Okay, cool. So now we know counter um, is equal to 1. Okay. So next, what we want to do is it comes to this line right here, and it's going to evaluate. Is counter less than 11? Counter is 1, right? Is 1 less than 11? Of course it is, right? So it's going to, if this is true, it should step down into the next line. So let's see what happens. And that's all we want to do is click step over. Step over is going to take us into the next line and see if this really happens. Okay. So step over. And now there we go. So now we're inside of this code block. If we were not inside of that code block, it would have skipped over and it would have went over behind the loop. Okay. It would have just kept on going. Matter of fact, on that note, what I want to do is I'm going to refresh this code. Loop complete. What I want to do is once this loop is complete, I just want to do an alert message. Also, just so we know that this works, let me remove this debugger for a second. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run this code. So I ran the code, loop complete, and look, it prints Antoine.Digital to the page 10 times. Okay. So I just wanted to do that just so we know that we're on the same page. Okay. You see, my name is getting printed 10 times to the page. Okay. I don't like that it's all on one line. So one thing I could do is I can do this. I can wrap this in a P tag because remember the P is a block element. And now I'll refresh it, loop complete because it went through all of the code. And now you see Antoine.Digital 10 times on the page, and it's wrapped in P tags. So every P is on its own line. Okay. So I just wanted to show you, I just want to make sure that the code works, and I wanted to show you what the end result will be. Okay. But now we're going to go back and we're going to debug it and step through it one line at a time. Okay. Let's go back, refresh the page, and now boom, we're back debugging. So I'm gonna click step over. Now we're at the counter equals 1. Counter is now equal to 1. If counter is less than 11, we go into this line, we go into this block of code, and here we go. So we want to perform this block of code 10 times. So we want to write document.write Antoine.Digital to the page. So right now, and nothing is on the page, right? And Antoine.Digital is not on the page because this line has not executed yet. As soon as we step past this line, we step over this line, the browser is going to execute it. So let me click step over. And boom, if you notice up here on the web page, Antoine.Digital shows up because we completed that line. All right. Next thing we want to do is we want to check and see counter equals counter plus 1. Okay. So it's going to execute this line right here. Counter is still equal to 1. Okay. Counter equals counter, which is 1 plus 1. So this is how you increment. Okay. So when I press step over, it's going to go back to the top of the loop and counter is going to be changed. Boom. So now let's see what counter is. Counter is now equal to 2, just like we expected. Okay. So we have 2 less than 11. Is that true? If it's true, it's going to go into this. It's going to go back to this line once again. So I click step over and here we go. We're back into the loop. Okay. It's going to print that to the screen once again. And there you go. Now on the screen, we have Antoine.Digital 2 times because we've went through this loop 2 times. Okay, cool. So I just published a quick little poll just to see if you guys are understanding the counter equals counter plus one, because I know that's just something different and something to get used to. It's just a simple way for you to add one to a number. We can also add two. If we wanted to, we can jump by twos. I could have easily said counter equals one counter plus two. So now this will increment by twos every single time. Okay. Or I could do counter plus three if you wanted to count by threes. Okay. So let's just say for some reason you were writing a kid's math website and you wanted to do all of the multiples of three. You can do it in a loop, just like this. You can say, I want you to print all the multiples to a page, but start as three and then add three to that three. And now you get six, add three to that six and you get nine, and it could just keep on going down. So just an example of what you could do with it. All right, so people have said they have questions. I'm looking out for those questions. Let me know what looks weird, what doesn't make sense. Ooh-wee. Our webpage is literally froze right now. What does counter equals one mean again? Counter equals one means we just want to initialize our variable at one, because we know we want to get to 10 times. We want to print to the screen 10 times. For same thing with YouTube. YouTube has a certain thing they want to do. So right here, this is YouTube mixes, right? So if you go to your YouTube page, you're going to see the same thing in the sense of you're going to see 5 screenshots right here. YouTube only wants to do 5. So YouTube is going to set their number at 1, and they're going to say as long as counter is less than 5, print to the screen. As soon as it gets to 5, it's going to stop. And then it's going to come down here and do this. And what it's going to do over here is it's probably going to do 10, because you see 5 here for recommended. These are my recommended videos. Once it's done with those, it's going to go down here and do the continue watching, right? And it's going to show for every single continue watching video. So that number, you just need somewhere to start. So the 1 is literally where are we starting at? Okay. Some people even start at 0, right? And that's when you're using arrays and stuff like that, which we'll get to. But so you can start wherever you want. But the main thing is you want to know where are you ending at. So you can start at 10 and end at 20. Either way it go, that's still 10 times. If you just know that you want to do 10 times, that's what matters. But of course, we're people, so we start at 1. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When it gets to the end, does it mean you will see the alert loop complete? Yes. Once it's done with this, once this is no longer true, the browser continues executing. So any code I have down here, any code, I can have an alert, I can have a prompt, I can have a new variable X equals 10, and I can start doing some other stuff. Anything you like, it just continues doing your code, the rest of your code. Okay, this loop just goes right here for a while. It just stays in this little loop. And when it's done, it goes down to the next line. And I just wanted to show you that. That way you can see the order. The alert will not pop up until this loop is done. Would counter plus plus work if we had put counter plus plus plus? Is that a thing? No. Great question, but it's the syntax is just 2 plus signs. Okay, 2 plus signs. And then also we have another thing where it's 2 minus signs. If you do 2 minus signs, that means decrease. That's a decrement. So you can do increments, which means go up by 1, or a decrement, which means go down by 1. Okay, and we can talk about that as well. So we got plus plus, which is increment, and minus minus, which is decrement. But right now we're just focused on going up because we're trying to make sure we get to 10. That way we can end this loop. Cool. Let's just continue stepping through the code, right? Right now, counter is equal to 2. But after the statement, counter is going to be equal to 2 plus 1 because counter is 2 plus 1. So we go over here, and now we see counter is 3 less than 11. Is 3 less than 11? Yes. So we're going to go over it again. Okay. Now I'm going to stop right here. It's going to keep on doing this over and over again, right? But before that, I want to see what happens if I do a step into, right? Because this is a function right here. I see right is a function. If I step into it, oh, nope. Oh, they didn't show me. So this is a thing too. We can step into anybody else's code except for the built-in JavaScript code. And the reason why I believe, I never looked into it, the reason why they don't let you do it, I believe, is because they don't want you to hack JavaScript and kind of reverse engineer it. I'm not really sure on that, but it definitely didn't let me step into it. So it's cool. We focusing on step over just so that way we can walk through our stuff anyway. So counter equals counter plus 1 once again. So now we got 3 equals 3 plus 1, or counter equals 3 plus 1, which is 4. Let's go and check again. And now we got counter equals 4. Now another thing you can do, right, is you can use something called a breakpoint. Okay, a breakpoint. This is a keyword. A breakpoint will break, it will stop, just like what we're doing right here. Just like we stopped at this line 14, we can tell it to stop anywhere we want. So let's say I wanted to stop at 18, right? So now you see this little green thing right here. What this means is if I click play, if I click play, what's supposed to happen is it's going to keep on going through the rest of my code. Like I said, it will just run through the rest of my code, and that's it. When you click this breakpoint, it's automatically going to stop there. So I just click play, and look, it jumps right to that next line because it was supposed to keep on going and just finish the rest of the code out because I didn't click step over. I just click play. But because I have this breakpoint right here, it stops right there, and the browser knows not to continue going. So you can use breakpoints and be like, hey, anytime you can tell it exactly where to stop. Like right here, I wanted to stop in my alert. So literally, it's going to stop at that alert once it gets to it. Once it's done executing all of this, and then it gets to this line, the browser is going to stop right there. Okay. So for now, let's just keep on stepping through this. You can just step through it kind of quick if you want. Like this. And now look, if you notice, counter is now up to 8 because we just did count. It just keep on incrementing. And look, if you look at our screen, you see Antoine.Digital is on the screen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Okay. And just keep on going through. Okay. So right now we're at 10, right? Is 10 less than 11? Yes, it is. Okay. So it goes here, here, and now it's going to do counter equals 10 plus 11. 10 plus 11. And 10 plus 1 equals 11, right? So now it's going to go over here. So now counter is equal to 11. And this is where we run into the condition where, or to the situation where the condition is not true, because 11 less than 11 is 11 less than 11? No, of course it's not. It's equal to 11, but it's not less than 11. So because it's not less than 11, what's going to happen is when I click step over, it's not going to step right to this function like it's been doing. It's not going to go to document.write. Instead, what it's going to do is it's going to step, it's going to just continue, it's going to finish the loop. So watch what happens. It steps over to the next line of code, which is this alert. Okay. So as soon as this is not true anymore, it stops writing to the screen. It stops incrementing. It doesn't need to increment anymore. Okay. Cool. And then as you see, once this line executes, once I click step over, we're going to see an alert. Boom, there's the alert. Cool. All right, click OK. And you can continue stepping through your code if you want to. But we're done. JavaScript is all out of there. And that's it. That's it. So now we have all 10 on the page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's it. If we wanted it to be 11, This is another thing we could do. We can say while counter is less than or equal to 11. You see that equal sign, that means less than or equal to. So when it gets to 11, it's actually going to do it the code one more time. And one thing you can do right here, watch this. So that way you can see the numbers. Do some concatenation. Okay. I'll say Antoine.Digital and counter equals, and I concatenate in what the counter is. Okay. I concatenate that in. So the counter, of course, is going to start off as 1, then it's going to go to 2, then it's going to go to 3, and we're going to see that on the actual page. So let me go over here. Let me refresh. We got our debug going, and watch what happens when we start stepping through our code. So counter equals 1 is 1 less than or equal to 11. Sure it is. Document.write, and now we see Antoine.Digital dash counter equals 1. You see that on the screen, counter equals 1. Okay. If I step over, do it again, now we see counter equals 2 because counter is 2, right? Right here we see counter is 2 because it's incremented. Now it's going to be 2 plus 1, counter is equal to 3. So the next time we come through here, it's going to print 3 to the screen. It's going to get incremented again. We get 3 plus 1 equals 4. So next time it comes through, counter is equal to 4. So we're going to see counter equals 4 on the screen. Okay. So that's just a way for you. If you need to use that, you can. If you need to use that number, sometime you do. Sometime you want to onto the screen, you're printing a numbered list, right? And you want to use your own number list. You don't want to use like the UL or the LI tags. So that's just one way to do it. Okay. So it's going to keep on doing that. I'm going to press play now because I don't want to watch the rest of it. Matter of fact, I do. I want to watch it because I want to. But you know what? I don't want to step through one line at a time. Instead, I'm going to take away this breakpoint. I'm going to add a breakpoint at line 14. I only wanted to stop at line 14. So I'm going to press play. And now counter is 5. Press play. Now counter is 6. Press play. Now counter is 7. Press play. Now counter is 8. So every time I press play, it just runs through the code again and stops at my breakpoint. Okay, press play, counter is 9. Press play, counter is 10. Actually, it's called resume. I keep on saying play because it looks like a play button. It's actually resume. So now we at 11, right? Counter is now equal to 11. So is 11 less than or equal to 11? Yes, it is. So press resume again. Now we're going to have 12. Is 12 less than or equal to 11? No, it's not. Press resume, and what's going to happen is it's going to go to that next line. Loop complete. And now we're good. And if we go over here to our code, we see we got all the way from 1 down to 11. Yeah, loops can definitely, I mean, you can use a loop to try to hack someone else's code. It is, yeah, there is a way to do it if you can get access to it. Or you can use loops to continually ping somebody's website, like continually it's kind of crazy, like continue pressing a button on somebody's website. You can use JavaScript to click a button and you can like keep pressing a button, pressing a button, pressing a button. And sometimes if you press a button on a website too many times, it can crash it. You know, you can mess it up. It can mess up some of the data. I mean, it can mess up the website, make it vulnerable for that way you can kind of do something else tricky and then get inside of their database. Yeah, yeah. I had a call with somebody last night about cybersecurity and how there's such a huge need. They say there's a bigger need for cybersecurity than there is for software development. Even though they're kind of connected, but cybersecurity being like hacking, being digital security, trying to protect websites or trying to protect government websites or corporate websites, databases. It's a serious thing. So I'm going to be looking more into if we can have a course on that as well. Cool. Cool. So that's that code, okay? So any questions, let me know right now. If you got any questions, or if you think you got it, just type I got it. If you got questions and don't know how to ask your questions, just say I'm not clear about XYZ. Cool, Dion. Oh, Mary. Okay, that's good to know, Mary. All right, we need to talk now. Okay, cool, Naomi. All right, cool. You guys are getting it. So far, so good. Okay. Oh, nice, Samantha. That's cool. That's good. Now, these days, I know you guys can multitask. These days, you can keep up and try what I'm doing at the same time. You don't have to. You can just chill and watch and just take notes. Um, but at the same time, I know you guys are getting more advanced too. So that's really cool. Okay, yeah, it's cool. Everybody's different for sure, and definitely, if you learn better by doing, that's what it's about. Learn what works for you. If you're somebody who can't keep up as far as trying to code while I'm coding, don't do it. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just sit there, take notes, watch the replay videos. Everybody's different. The counterpart is confused me just a little. It's cool. Oh, and also I didn't show you guys. It's going to be the same exact thing with this right here. I'm gonna run this code again. This time what we're going to see is we're doing counter plus plus. So it's literally the same thing. So this line is easier. Forget this way right here. If you want, Ariel, you could just do, okay, if our counter equals one, then down below you have counter equals counter plus one. Are you basically saying one equals one plus one? How is it increasing its increments every time the codes run? No, we're not basically saying one equals one plus one, even though it does look like that. What you're saying is take that variable counter and whatever it was before, overwrite it override it, override it with one plus one. You got that part right. So it's not the one on the left side of the equation. It isn't one. It's just a variable, but it's saying overwrite whatever the value was before. Overwrite it now with this new thing, with whatever counter is currently plus one. Okay, and it's the same thing that's happening with this line right here. I just wrote it out the long way. Most people aren't going to write it out this way. They're going to do it this way. Counter plus plus. Counter plus plus means just take whatever counter is currently and add one to it. So Ariel, if you want, you can focus on this way because this may be easier for you to understand because you don't have to see like this equation or something like this, which it does look weird. But I just wanted to expose it to you so that way you know what's happening. So these two are the same exact thing. It's just adding one to some variable called counter. But what's happening here, this is a little different in the sense of it's really overriding what's in it. It's overriding using the variable though. It's kind of crazy. How can I equate that to something else? It's kind of crazy. I'm thinking about like a parent-child relationship. Like my daughter is equal to me plus more if you think about it. Like she's equal, like she has my DNA, like she has my genes, but at the same time she also has more because she's her own person, and then two, she also has some genes from her mother. So she could have been equal to me, right? But at the same time she couldn't be because she also has other things that come along with it. So just think about it like that. Counter can also be daughter, and daughter is equal to daughter plus something extra. So that's one way to think of it. I'm not sure. Okay. But it seems like you got it. But yeah, this is just pretty much just a way to add one to it. Now I'm gonna keep on going, so it's okay. We're gonna do the same thing again, but this time what we're gonna do, I gotta get rid of this breakpoint because if I do, press and play won't work. Cool. So this time what I want to do is something similar, but in this situation, let me go over here. I'm going to create a different file. This file is going to be called um, images.html. Okay, images.html. I'm going to take most of the same code, copy and paste it. This is an example of a while loop with images, right? And this time we're going to do some different type of code inside of here, but we're going to keep our counter. So I'm not even going to get rid of the counter, okay? But instead of document.write, we're going to do something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to print some images to the page, okay? So we got images. I'm going to create a folder called images, and I need to go and get some images really quick, okay? So let me go over here to my website called pexels.com. If you ever need free images, Pexels is the way to go. They got a bunch of free images right inside of here, okay? This is one of my favorite photographers on here. It's called Nappy, and I'm gonna take some of their images, and they're all free, which is cool. So I'm gonna go here and say save image as, and I'm gonna save it in my folder. So I go to Unlock Academy. Where is my Unlock Academy at? Is it in source code? I can't see. Oh, there it is. Unlock Academy. My project is called While Loop. Here's my images folder. And you got to be, this is an important part right here. You got to be strategic about what you name it, because we want to dynamically add these things to the pages. So that means we need to know beforehand what the name of the images are. They're going to be based off of numbers, right? So this first image I just downloaded, I'm going to name it image 1. Okay, image 1. That's very important. Next, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna save this image as well, and this one is going to be called image 2. Okay, and the other cool thing is they all have to be, unless you know what they are before, just make sure they're all the same thing. Right now I'm going to use all JPEG images. Okay, when you're doing this exercise for now, later on there'll be other ways to do it. You can use JPEG and PNGs and GIFs or GIFs, whatever you call it. But for now, just try to use all of the same image. So I'm going to make sure I'm using all JPEGs. This says JPEG, so I'm going to use it. So this is going to be image3.jpg. Okay, I'm going to get this young lady and I'm going to call her image4.jpg. Okay, I'm going to do 6 images. Get this lady right here and I'm going to say image5.jpg. It already had the JPEG there. And let me get one more lady. I'm gonna get her right here because it looks like it's about the same height and width. Save image as image6.jpg. Okay. Cannot see website URL. Oh, it's okay. I'll copy and paste it right here for you. Okay. So now what we just did was I just created, if I go over here to my images folder, I have image1.jpg, image2.jpg, image3.jpg, image4.jpg, image5.jpg, and image6.jpg. Okay, so the reason why this is important, the naming, is because I'm going to use the counter to access each one of these. And remember, you can call this anything. I'm just calling it counter. You can call it num. You can call it anything you want, right? Any variable, as long as it's not a keyword. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to say for every single, it's only 6 images, right? So we want to say as long as it's less than or equal to 6, because we know we have 6 images. What we're going to do is I'm going to create a div. This div has an ID for, you know what, maybe I want to create this div. I'm going to create this div dynamically. And I'm going to say, oh no, I know what I wanted to do. I did want to create this div ID equals image section. So this is where I'm going to add my images at. Okay, image section. So over here, what I want to do now is I want to say var I'm just going to do a document.write. That way we don't get too, I don't want to complicate things. There's different ways we can do it. I'm just trying to focus on loops right now, so that way you guys get a better understanding of that. So document.write, and we want to write an image, right? So img, the source is equal to images, right? We got to go to our folder called images slash, and then the name of the image. So one thing we know, remember this is very important. One thing we know is each one of our images has the same naming convention. This is image one. So they all start with the word image. So I could say image, but then they all have a different number. So this is where concatenation comes into play. Okay, concatenation is important here. So what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate in the number. So we can't just put 1, we can't just put 2, we can't just put 3, because it's going to write the same image every single time. Instead, what we want to do is we want to say counter, and I'm going to show you why this is important. And then we want to go back in here and we want to close out. Don't forget, this is going to be key. Make sure you keep track of your quotation marks. Quotation marks are important. So you use the double quotes on the outsides, right, to wrap around your whole string, and then to concatenate something in. And then we use the single quotes around attributes, because like anytime, usually we do double quotes up here, but you can also do single quotes. Oops. Right, you can also do single quotes. When you're in JavaScript, you pretty much always want to use single quotes around attributes, because if not, if I use a double quote right here, it's going to confuse everything. And now you see everything turns red because it thinks my string is only from here to here, when really my string is like from here to there. So be careful with that. Use single quotes on the inside, double quotes on the outside. You'll get used to using it. Take your time. If you run into issues while you're working on it, let me know. I can look at your code and help you out. Most likely, I know this may trip up a couple people, and it's okay if it does. All right. Just main thing is to look at your colors. Make sure everything looks like it's colored right. Right. Your strings, anything that you want to be a part of a string should be like this orangish brownish color. Your variable should be blue. Okay. And then at the end, you put a double quote again, single quote, because the single quote is closing off this quote, right? Every quote has a start quote and an end quote. So this right here is ending off that. We got to end it. We got to make sure we open and close it. If not, you're going to have some type of error on your page. And it's like, why? And it's because something isn't closed. So this looks good right here, but what we're missing is .jpeg. So it's image1.jpg. Okay, and then we end the end of that. So that's our image right there. And then of course we got to close off our image tag. Okay, so this should work. I'm gonna go through it and just make sure first, see if it pops up, and it should put 6 images onto the screen. Wish me luck. Yeah, these quotes, those quotes, everybody hates them. Advanced programmers who's been doing it for 20 years still hate those quotes, because you have to be very, very careful with those. So let's see what happened, what we get. Oh, I got to go to a new page. I got images.html. And here we go. Cool. So there go our images. Okay. So let's go through it. Let's go through the code together, step through it using our debugger, and watch what happens. Okay. We're going to just go through it. So let me make sure I got my debugger statement uncommented. Okay. And let's go through it. Okay. So boom, as soon as I refresh the page, it comes in here and it pauses at the debugger statement. Okay. Next, we click step over, and now we at counter equals 1. So our counter is 1 from the start. We check here our condition. Is counter less than 6? Is 1 less than 6? Yes, it is. Less than or equal to 6. Yes, it is. So now we go to our next line. This line is going to create this string. Okay. The string that is creating is image source equals images slash image, whatever counter is, .jpg. So image 1, it's going to concatenate those two together, .jpg, right? Go to the next line. and you see, uh-oh, it didn't show up on the screen right away. That's different. That's different. So images don't show up on the screen while you're debugging. Let me see if it works. I'm just going to step through all of this for a quick second. Loop complete. Press play. Wow. That's weird. Okay. I didn't know that. So it doesn't show, it just doesn't show the images one by one. It waits to the end to show them. Maybe because it's graphics and it has to be rendered. Okay. So image text may show easily like we just saw. But when you're debugging, images don't show up one by one. I feel like I've done this before. And it did show up one by one. I could be wrong. But cool. But that's the whole point. So let's go through the code one more time just to make sure you guys got it. Oh yeah, definitely, Malcolm. You got to use, when you're doing JavaScript, you got to do single and double anytime. It helps the browser know what's what. Like what's the long string, what's the attribute. Okay. Okay, so let's go through this code. Counter equals 1, counter less than 6. Yes, it is. It's going to print that to the screen. All right, and then we increment counter by 1. Right now, counter is 1. As soon as I go to the next line, counter is now equal to 2. Okay. And it's going to do the same thing over and over again. Okay. Counter is now equal to 5. So it's going to say image source images slash image 5.jpg. Okay. Does that make sense to you guys? Does that make sense how we're creating that image on the fly? Loop complete, and then it shows the images. Okay. So we have our images over here in this panel, right? Image 1, image 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And every time we loop through here, so this is kind of what and they're doing a version of this. This isn't exactly what YouTube is doing. I'm sure of it. I know what they're doing because I've created websites like YouTube. They're actually getting those images from their database. We're getting ours from like our local folder. But when YouTube does this over here with these little screenshots, it's getting those screenshots from, it's getting those images from a database. Okay. So each one of these are coming, but it's the same thing where it's going through and it's looping through and it's going to show this, then show that, then show that. I can also take it another step, right? And I can add, so right here we can do show an image, and then I can do document.write, and I can show, I can do a break tag, right? And then underneath that, I can do a dope image number, and then I can concatenate what number image are we on, right? And now it's going to, when I run through this code, it's going to do each one of those lines every single time. So that's the cool part, is that you don't have to write that for every image. Because just imagine if I had to write this right here for every single image. This is 3 lines, right? If I had to do that for every image, that's 6 images. 3 times 6 would be 18. I would have to write 18 lines of code. Instead, I wrapped it up in 3 lines of code. So loops make you it helps you become way more efficient, okay? So I step through it. I go over here, do document.write my image, do my break tag, do my text. You see the text pops up here, but the image isn't going to pop up to the end. All right. So if we're just going to do that 6 times, and after 6 times, what we're going to have is image. Oh man, this is ugly. Oh, this is ugly. So what I really want to do is show you guys some more stuff. So this is how you debug, right? I'm just showing you guys, but everything is here. It does that, and then you know what I probably could do? Probably just need to do this. I wrap this in a p tag. So you got to concatenate in a p tag. This may work out better. Get rid of this debugger statement for a minute. loop complete. Okay, this is a little better. Cool. So we have image and then dope image number 1. Okay. Image, dope image number 1. Image, dope image number 2. Image, dope image number 3. Image, dope image number 4. Image, dope image number 5. Yeah, Lauryn Hill is the truth. She really is. She really is. I wish she just kept making music outside of the industry. I just wish she just kept going. Um, cool. So I hope that makes sense right there. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Nothing much really to it. Um, and I'm just hoping that you guys can recreate this for homework. That's pretty much what I want you to do. Pretty much want you to go over and do the same exact thing. Start off with the really basic example of just printing your name to the screen, and then actually go and try to use some images and do something cool with that. If you want to get really, really cool with it, what you can also do is you can do some divs, you can do some font colors, you can do some add some IDs to it, like a div. You can add an ID for like, or a class name, say like image div. I'm saying something like that, but then you would have to close the image down, the div down here. Pretty cool stuff, right? And then later on, we can give some CSS to it. So it's the sky's the limit with what you can do, how you can style it. As we go along, we're going to be using loops a lot, and I'm going to show you how to really do some cool dynamic stuff with loops. I don't want to rush it. I just want to make sure you at least understand the basic concepts and you can write a loop and understand what's happening, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I urge you to just get started. Look up some loops. You can start. I don't want you to go any further as far as, if you want to, please feel free, matter of fact. But really, I want you to just focus on while loops. Remember, there's 3 different type of loops. I hope I'm not missing any, but you have the while loop. Then we also have something called the do while loop. And I'll show you a little bit about what it looks like, but we're going to talk more about this later on. This is the do while loop. The way this works is it says do something. So this one doesn't check for a condition first. It doesn't check to see if something is true. Instead, it does it first, and then it checks to see if something is true. So this is different because this is for when you automatically want to do something at least once. When you know you want to do it at least once, and then you want to check to see if you should continue doing it. So there's examples of when you would like to do this. But for the most part, where I see myself and what I see other people using is something called for loops. And we're going to get to for loops as well. Why can't we put it all in the first document.write? You could definitely put everything in the first document.write. It just would be a long line. And that's where more confusion can come into place when everything is very long and you can't see it all and you got a lot of quotation marks. It can get kind of complicated, but also we don't really use document.write. Document.write is really just for testing. What you're going to be doing in the long run is you're going to be using inner HTML, right? Something like this, what you will be using to add information to a web page. And with inner HTML, same thing. You can make it very, very long, or you can just do a little bit at a time. I usually don't create HTML elements dynamically. I understand it, but it may come up. Believe me, it's going to come up. You're going to have to create HTML elements dynamically. All right. Especially if you want to work for a company or if you want to work for some clients and build projects for them. People want dynamic websites. So if they want a dynamic website, you need to be able to create HTML elements dynamically. Great question, Malcolm. Hey, cool. Any last minute questions? Okay. All right. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys have some happy coding.